Hi, I'm Edwin Samuelson, and welcome to the CineFiles, a show that allows you to eavesdrop on the conversations of fellow film fanatics. All right, today we'll be discussing evil children, that is, children that are possessed by the devil or just plain evil. But before I begin, let me introduce my co-host. To my left, Mr. Eric Cohen. To his left, Jeff Galashaw. And to his left, Michael Foltz. Now,
I'm going to catch you in something.
Oh, I know, they're not possessed by the devil. They're evil fuckers.
Forgive our producer slash co-host. He's battling a migraine.
Severe migraine, but I'm glad.
Yeah, he had the screws put to him during the live show, so he's a little off his kilter.
My head is in the
But it's evil kids.
It is evil kids.
That's the theme.
They're evil sons of bitches. They do bad deeds. Anyway, we're going to start out with, of course, the most famous, and probably, I guess you could say, the first evil kid film, and it actually made its child actress at the time a very big star. The movie is The Bad Seed, and the actress is Patty McCormack.
Right on.
Yes.
Let's start out with this one. The Bad Seed concerns Patty McCormack, of course, who plays the title role, is a child who is a very unique character because the girl actually uses manipulation and actually is kind of like, I guess you say, kind of like the Eddie Haskell, where she convinces people she's this really sweet girl and overdoes it.
Well, she's a sociopath. It's the first depiction of a sociopath.
A real honest-to-God sociopath,
Yeah.
exactly.
And this is something that people really have never seen at this time. I mean, seeing a child at this evil, everyone thought a kid was really sweet and all this, but they didn't really see how manipulative and vindictive they could be.
Well, you got to understand, the movie was based on a very successful Broadway play, which was based on a very successful novel. It was like a huge bestseller. So people were anticipating the movie version at this point. So it had sort of its built-in audience already. But they changed the ending.
They did change the ending.
From the original source material.
Now, what makes The Bad Seed stick with you? Is it the subject matter? Is it the performances? Or is it just a good movie? Because whenever something is new and original at the time, it actually has a little, life to it.
I saw it recently. It's not necessarily that good of a movie. I mean, it's very. After I watched the movie, or during the movie, and then after the movie, I said to myself and I said to friends afterwards, I can understand why the gays love this movie because it is so goddamn campy. I mean, especially the mom. The mom does more scene chewing than I've ever seen. Like, sometimes the way she reacts to certain things is like, okay, that makes sense. That's how I would see a mother. And then when she's like doing these stutter steps and she's picking up the phone going, hello? Like, she's just so emotionally crippled inside that her child is, she skips the generation of evil because her mother was like a killer, and here her little girl is a killer all over again, and she just doesn't know how to handle it, and she's going off the. But Patty McCormack is wonderful. She's the strength of the film because she's such a vile little brat.
And I'd like to point out one performance I enjoyed. I don't know if this puts me in the gay category, but Eileen Eckhart
As the mom of the deceased boy.
Yes, I loved her performance in this film.
Come here and give your auntie a kiss.
Well, don't forget, as Eric mentioned, too, this was based on a play, and so it's going to be theatrical.
It feels very stagey.
Well, yeah, it was based on a play which was based on a successful novel, and it'd be interesting to see if they had, at the time, they had to change the ending because,
censor reasons.
The censor reasons. It's a pretty dark ending.
Well, how was the original ending?
The original ending, if I recall, the mother thinks she's killed the daughter. She realizes and then she tries to kill herself.
Shoots herself in the head.
But the twist is her daughter survives.
Which seems to be like a regular, almost like these days, a Hollywood typical ending.
Right,
like
the usual dark end, like sinister.
But what's great is somehow the mom survives the gunshot to the head, but yet a lightning bolt comes out of nowhere and kills the child. And I thought to myself after I saw this, at that time when that movie was released, and if you took your child to see it, I can just imagine legions of parents saying to their children, see, God doesn't like kids that misbehave. God kills bad children with lightning bolts.
Would you say this is a precursor, too, to like Baby Jane and films like in that vein?
Not really.
It feels like it, even though I know it's older ladies.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I would say that for a time it was a unique kind of film. No one had like a nasty. I mean, the closest thing you had to nasty kids might be like the character was always picking on a W.C. Fields, and always getting away with it, But this is the first time you saw sort of like a real evil, serious child. the Baby Jane stuff, that was just people's fascination with seeing like what they thought were has-been stars kind of humiliate themselves in these roles, which is too bad because it's actually a very good film.
Robert Aldrich was one of the greatest directors of his time.
Robert Aldrich directed that, and it's a really good film. But I think Bad Seed's okay. It's not. It's some people consider it a classic. I could take it or leave it. I don't think it really holds up.
I'll tell you something.
okay.
The way that sums up The Bad Seed is there's a commentary track on it. Two people do the commentary track. One of them is Patty McCormick. The other one's Charles Bush, who is like the biggest like Queenie guy, who does like all these homages to different like
he did a film
gay
called
classics.
Die Mommy Die.
And he's a cross-dresser.
Yeah, he's a cross-dresser. So that just tells you a lot about The Bad Seed.
Well, I gotta say,
won't be
Patty
in the
McCormick is a terrific actress. In fact, one film you might be interested to check out is a movie called Mommy, which she plays about 40 years later, and she actually plays a psychotic mother of a daughter who's about to get married. It's interesting, to compare it to The Bad Seed.
Yeah, Bad Seed's been remade. It was remade for TV, I think.
Yeah, it was remade and it's been imitated.
There was an
countless
English
times.
remake that was released in the 70s that I forget what it was called, but that was interesting too. That was actually much darker than the original Bad Seed.
All right, well, let's go on to our next film, Mike. What will that be?
Yes, Mike.
Edwin's just
our producer, he's down for the count.
I got
but
a
he's not
headache
out.
today, people.
The Boy with the Headache.
Do some
that
heavy
is
lifting.
not a film that we were going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about a film that from the 70s was actually very influential enough to influence one of the great horror authors of our generation. And the name of the film was a Spanish film called Who Can Kill a Child? And this was introduced by our esteemed co-host, Edwin Samuelson here.
Can we have the camera on Edwin again? Because this poor guy.
I'm in pain, man.
I wish we
best
could
I
get a
can.
close-up of his eyeballs rolling
It's
back
purely
up into his head.
entertaining.
But Who Can Kill a Child is a Spanish film all about this English couple that vacation to a Spanish island. And for some reason or another that's never explained in the film, and I don't know what camera I'm supposed to talk in, I guess I'm going to do this one. For some reason unexplained, that these the adults on the island, for the most part, there's like a couple stragglers, but most of the adults on the island have been murdered, and there's a lot of kids just sitting around with like dirty looks on their faces, and this English couple has to figure out what the hell is going on, and it turns out that these children, I guess, like, what would you say, maybe like some sort of like psychic disease or some
It's not really
psychic
explained.
present.
I just want to say, let's just say it's an ambient
Well,
force.
it's got to be some
malevolent force.
It's got to be some either malevolent
Psychic.
force or
It doesn't
psychic.
Why are you so
And-
like hell-bent on there having to be a reason?
Because towards the end of the film, there are kids. There are
We should have a camera
kids.
here. We should have a camera here.
There are kids that are unaffected by whatever's going on, but when the two shitty-looking kids show up,
Think of it as think of it as simplistic like zombie plague, right? One kid is evil, whatever. Touches a good kid, that good kid becomes part of the evil kid. It's just that simple.
So it's never explained if it's possession or if it's some sort of like psychic takeover or something.
Well,
but I mean it's very well done.
I want to say one thing very important before we get more into this movie. Now, if you guys want to see this film, it is out on DVD. It's been in the works for years. I mean, it's never really been released. It was released in America in the theaters, and it just never came out. Finally, it got released by a company called Dark Sky. Now, you have an option to watch it in Spanish or in English. I would highly recommend you watch it in English, even though the film was shot in Spain, because the couple is an English tourist, and I think it helps.
It's not dubbed either.
It's not dubbed. They actually shot in English, speaking English, and this is.
It feels very natural. It doesn't feel like the typical Euro horror film that came out in those times. It's
very stylish, very
very
well
stylish, very naturalistic too. It's not hysterical in the performances.
A lot of the actions and the reactions by the characters within the story, I think, are very. They seem sensible.
It gets a little histrionic at the end. The final scene. Don't want to give anything away, but they do some really interesting things in this film. They set up the whole question, like, well, if you're in this situation, and it's like the title movie is Who Can Kill a Child? well, these guys are put in situations where they're going to have to kill the children to survive. And
I also think it's a terrible name of a movie, but it's like one of those titles
But it's
that
had,
if
like-
you see it on the drive-in marquee, you're like,
Right.
oh, God.
But you know what, though? I think it's had, like, there was like one Spanish
Island of the
language
Damned.
title was translated in different
it's
ways.
awkwardly phrased.
It was also known as Island of the Damned here in America. It was released by AIP, American International Pictures, and the opening, which the Nazi footage, was cut out. With the children and atrocities, and it was a little trimmed here and there.
Well, the director also said on the commentary track that he wanted to explain how the children got this way because there was like a toxic rain that happened, but he thought it would be just better to just remove that and lend the film some ambiguity.
Let me ask you, Jeff. There's a scene in the movie. I mean, there's many wonderful set pieces. In fact, one of my favorites is the pinata scene, which I do not want to give away. Do you have any specific set pieces that you liked? I mean, it does, because this movie really has influenced a lot of films, I think.
Well, there's a scene, I don't think it's really ruining anything, but when a little girl, one of the surviving parents, a little girl runs to her father and has convinced him that she hasn't been affected and that he should go away with her to help, I think, their ailing grandmother. And they warn him, don't go, and he's like, but that's my daughter. And then he slowly goes, and then it's quiet. Then you start hearing him scream, and I thought that affected me much more than a certain scene where the question of the title happens, which I felt was meant to shock, but it didn't really have an effect on me. But that scene had more of an effect on me.
It had an effect on me, and you know what? I was really happy. Seriously, when later on in the film, like a really cute little moppet little boy gets a shotgun to the face, I believe. And I was really happy.
That's pretty
I liked it.
That's pretty unusual to see violence toward children, especially back then. But I gotta say too that the children who are the evil children are really good. They're very creepy. I mean.
I wanted that main kid to die.
The director, what the director did that was brilliant about this piece. Am I looking at this camera now? Are we doing this thing, the rock star thing? I
think you're looking over here, dude.
Oh, here?
Yes.
No.
There you go.
Wow, you're so handsome.
New camera setup.
Eric, you're handsome.
I thought how the director handled it was very intelligent. He didn't tell the kids to act creepy. He just had the kids be yourselves. Mm-hmm. And had the adults react to that.
No, they didn't act creepy. They acted like snot-nosed brats that needed to be shot in the face with a shotgun. That's the way I saw it.
Well, maybe that was your interpretation.
Are we gonna have a fight here? Because
All right, I got money on Eric.
you're coming.
You got your money on Eric. What are you talking about?
I don't know. Eric's a pretty smart dude.
I stay impartial.
Throw salt in my eyes.
You bring a knife, they'll bring a gun.
Okay. But I will say, of all the movies that we're discussing today, I would think that Who Can Kill a Child is my favorite. And of course, it influenced, Children of the Corn, which I definitely think that it makes.
Well, yeah, that was the lead-in.
I really, and that's the film we're going to be talking about next. But I definitely, you can guys agree with me on that. People who saw Children of the Corn they definitely saw Who Can Kill a Child. The makers did. Let's start off with Children of the Corn. Children of the Corn. Let's get into Children of the Corn. Children of the Corn, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, is the first short story by Stephen King to be adapted for the small screen, or for the big screen, excuse me. And this one, unfortunately, is.
You might be right about that, though.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure. It was the first because it was one from his Night Shift collection, and it takes the basic premise of his short story, but adds some new characters and just
an unnecessary history, like an unnecessary prologue, which kills it.
Yeah,
what was great about Who Can Kill a Child was that
it's very open to
it was
your
from the point of view of the people showing up at this place for the first time. There's no explanation for what's going on. Why do you need that? In this film, there's so much exposition that just kills the film.
Well, Stephen King's story was about 30 pages. I read it when I was in college.
Wait a second, but the prologue in the film really doesn't explain a whole lot.
No, but it has to show you the kids, the group of kids. It turns against like the whole town, and then there's the
But that doesn't
little
really
girl.
explain anything.
It's an unnecessary prologue. Why do you need any of that shit?
Oh.
Just have the movie begin with a couple showing up in the town and
Like, what the
weird
hell?
crap happens.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. But I'm just saying it doesn't really explain anything. It just, evil kids.
And it has, let's see.
It sets up what happened to the town.
Right.
You don't need to know what happened.
I would just, the reason, look at Who Can Kill a Child.
With that.
Look at Who Can Kill a Child. Okay. These people go to the island. The kids are there, and you see it firsthand yourself. By them, in Children of the Corn, you already see what's going to happen. You already know what you're getting. That's that. There's no surprises. And that was one problem I had with the film. Also, the leads, Linda Hamilton and Peter Horton are just. I mean, I have nothing against them personally, but they're very bland. There's no characters there.
Peter Horton's not a very good actor.
Well, I mean, I have nothing. I mean, he's not an awful actor. He's very bland.
Well, Linda Hamilton's. I like Linda Hamilton and some of the stuff that she's done, where she's made a name for herself, i.e., like Terminator and so on and so forth. But she just seems to be like this little like whimpering female lead or whatever. It's a very cheap film. It's a very cheap
$3 million, if I'm not mistaken.
It is just very cheap. It feels like a B-rated film. Now I gotta admit that the two children leads, Malachi and who's the one with the
Isaac.
hair? Isaac and Mal. Those kids are great because they're both two creepy ass ugly kids. Well, they're not even kids. I think they're like both 20 years old trying to be kids.
Well, that Cousin It, aka Isaac, that's who actually, believe it or not, that's who the guy is. He played Cousin It on the new Addams Family. He's only like 5'2" in real life. I think he's like less than 5 feet. So actually, him being older and having the body of a child actually does add some menace to him because he's like this child preacher.
Oh, he has a definitely good look. I mean, my problem is like the film leaves nothing to the imagination.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree with you.
And you're right. It's a cheap film. And you know what? There's stuff in there they probably threw all their budget into that they didn't need to show.
He who walks behind the rose.
I actually like that touch quite a bit, but it is, I think in the story, I'm sure, I did not read the short story.
That's not even in there.
I'm sure it's much more effective, but to have it in the movie, okay, so you have a demon that's basically infiltrated this society of children that managed to convince the children to kill all the adults. At least do it well. But it's like a little flashing light on the surface of the corn. It is so cheap. It reminds me of like an old Star Trek episode. That's how cheap it looks.
Jeff, did you like anything about the movie at all?
I hated the film. I honestly did. I mean, I saw it before, we had to do the show. So I've seen it years ago, and from what I could remember, it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Really?
Yes.
That was a hit when it came out in theater.
Yeah, that's what shocked me when I was watching it, because it's supposed to be, I guess considered somewhat classic. But I just sat there and I was just like, this is the biggest piece of shit I've ever seen in my life.
It made about $15 million, I think, in the theater, and it became a big hit on home video. But it was a low-budget movie. It was like $3 million.
And then it spawned all those sequels, which I honestly could say was probably, to me, better than the original.
Well, don't forget.
And that's not saying much.
There was a lot of Stephen King films that, really, that kind of almost started the trend a little bit. I think after The Shining, kind of led the way of Stephen King, Maximum Overdrive and Cujo and Salem's Lot. If you watch Salem's Lot, when I watched it as a kid, I loved the film. But then again, I was, 10?
I think
you
Salem's
watch
Lot's
it now, it's a real cheap piece of crap.
I think Salem's Lot's a pretty good movie, though.
I still like Salem's Lot a lot.
It's
since it was made for TV.
It's a really cheap-looking film,
just some stuff in there that's just still
By the way,
pretty
Charlize
spooky.
Theron and Naomi Watts are in the sequels, believe it or not.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it shows you. You never know. But there's 6 movies. Actually, I think there's 6 of the movies in the series, and they're talking about doing a complete remake and relaunch of the franchise. So.
Big shock.
Well, now the next film that I think we should bring up here is almost kind of an extension of what we were talking about earlier with The Bad Seed, kind of taking out the psychic or occult elements that Children of the Corn and Who Can Kill a Child brought in, and you go back to just a bad kid that does stuff. Which was The Good Son, that starred Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin. And what was great about this film is, and I know you've got some things to say about this, Edwin, what was great about this film is it took the whole Macaulay Culkin persona that America fell in love with Home Alone, and really turned it on its ear. And I believe that his father, Kit Culkin, told his agent, "You've got to get my son this role, otherwise we're going to fire you, because I want this role to kind of reverse the whole, let's make this kid a really wholesome little kid." And to have the battle between Elijah Wood and Macaulay Culkin, it's not a film classic, but let me tell you something. From beginning to end, it is a guilty pleasure of mine.
It's
very
not the best
entertaining
movie.
film.
It's not the best movie, but it's entertaining. It was directed by actually a perfect person for the movie, Joseph Rubin, who actually you might know from The Stepfather. And I can say this, in some respects, is the same story, but the children, changed to a child.
It's very well directed.
It's well directed. There's some little couple of plot holes, I think, because the movie's very short. It's like 86 minutes, so there's obviously some stuff.
It's a very serviceable film.
But it's a
it's
fun
like
movie.
something that shows up like on Saturday on TV, and you don't have anything better to do. You can watch it from
It's
beginning
very
to end.
watchable.
I love Mr. Highway, though, I have to say.
Now, I have a story about this film.
Please.
Now, the year it came out, I believe there was either a teacher strike or it was for asbestos cleaning, but they kept pushing back the beginning date of school in New York City that year. And I was just praying to God that I could see this movie before the school year started. I so highly anticipated wanting to see this movie. And I bought a ticket, even though it was rated R. I looked older back then. But I bought a ticket for the first screening for the film, and I just loved it. I went to see it 3 more times after that. You guys can call it a guilty pleasure. It is, because I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say, oh, it's like the most perfect movie. But it's something from my childhood I specifically remember as a movie I really enjoyed, and I can still watch it and still have fun with it.
What was it that resonated for you that made you want to see it again and again? What was the hook? What was...
I just the whole thing, I guess the marketing worked of, going against everything Macaulay Culkin was at that time, the boy next door, the little cute kid, and seeing him as this like evil, just pure out and out evil character. And plus, I really had never heard of Elijah Wood, so I didn't know anything about him. But when I first saw a picture of him, in the previews, I thought he actually looked like somebody who could play, the good character versus the pale, sickly-looking Macaulay Culkin.
That's the way I felt. This guy was like the antithesis of Macaulay Culkin. He played it so well. He did a good job of being the true good son. And whereas Macaulay, I gotta admit, Macaulay did a great job of playing an evil little prick.
That's what makes the movie for me is the interplay betwing the two characters, the kids.
Yes.
Because the reason I like it is that kid is scared for his life. He thinks he's going to get killed in the middle of the night, and he's like, he's sleeping, he's like keeping one eye open almost, and that's what I liked about the movies. You never knew what this kid was going to do. He was so sadistic and so evil. And they never really come up with a reason why he's this way, which I like too, But I like that
It's almost like the bad seed.
Yeah, and I just like that he's very, manipulative and,
Makes that homemade cannon to kill dogs, essentially.
Yeah, this is one sick puppy, and I like the way that he had the parents convinced that it was Elijah Wood who's the crazy one. I thought they thought he pulled it off pretty well, because that's the problem is with a lot of screenwriters. They think kids are smarter than they really are. They have the intelligence of an adult, but the way that they wrote the story, they made it believable that Macaulay Culkin was this sick, sadistic 12-year-old or 10-year-old kid. They didn't give him the brain of Albert Einstein, an adult's brain. You know what I mean? That's why I liked it.
But once again, you took the occult element out of it. You took almost like that supernatural element out of it, and you just made him to be a rotten little bastard that you were so happy at the end to see that he gets his comeuppance. Especially when Elijah Wood is actually at the very end going to help him and realize that this kid he's going to be bad for good.
Sadly, this was like the last, I think, Macaulay Culkin movie that actually, it was decent. After that he did The Page Master, and then basically I think he did Richie Rich and retired for quite a while.
Well, then he did the Michael Ehrlich biopic.
Well, he retired and came back, but But either way, don't let the name Macaulay Culkin pull you off if you think, oh, it's just a kid movie. It's a pretty good movie, I think.
Good Son, yeah.
It's a good one.
Yes,
It's watchable.
Watch it on a double bill with The Stepfather. I think that's a good one.
Buy it for $10.
Yeah.
And
why
now,
not? Let's go on to the next one, which actually I think is another good bad seed-like movie, which is Joshua.
Yeah, and that's the most recent update I think that we've seen of a bad child film where there's no supernatural element, there's no some sort of like X factor with this kid. And something, I'll even push it a little bit further. When you see the film, it's fair. It does give a kind of an ambiguous angle to see if this kid truly is evil. It really plays this straight down the middle. There is not much.
It's good too because you're not
He's a
quite.
creepy-ass kid,
He is
though.
creepy, but what's great about it is, and it totally works because of the actor that plays that kid.
He's terrific.
Perfectly cast. That kid's
Not
a
only
good
the
actor.
kid, but the whole cast. I think
The whole
very
cast is
effective.
wonderful.
Effective.
It's strange. It's an interesting film that's not. It's not filmed like it's a thriller. It's filmed like a family drama. with like some sort of like dark comedic quirks to it, but it's an interesting character study.
No, there's some thriller elements to
Well, it starts to become more pronounced as the movie goes on, but it's not done like a traditional thriller or horror film.
I think it's all psychological, really.
Yeah, it's all very psychological. Even like choice of music is pretty odd, you know, and it's quirky. That's the best way I can describe it. But what I like about it is not only you're not really sure what this kid's angle is. You don't know what it is he wants.
That's why I liked it.
Which I thought was really interesting. Is he jealous of the new his new sister, his new baby sister, and wants to get rid of her? Maybe not. Maybe he's trying to protect his sister from his mother and has a problem with her. We're not sure. Maybe the problem is with this. I mean, it's just really interesting. You don't know what the angle is there until you find out at the very end what it might be.
And I love how they made the kid like read the psychological textbooks to know what to do, you know, what the courses of the abuse.
Well, they had to explain that this is a much smarter than average kid.
Yeah, they make him a gifted kid, which
right,
actually
they make
works.
him a very gifted kid and a very unique kid and a very eccentric kid.
My example of his behavior, and it's actually my favorite scene in the movie, is that his mother and father, his father is a Christian, and I guess his grandmother would be a really religious lady, and then the mother is a Jewish lady. So of course she's, you know, in the Christian side of the family.
Non-religious Jewish. I mean.
Non-religious Jewish, but the kid decides to study Christianity, and of course it irks the mother to no end. It really freaks her out, and I thought that was a really way to get to her.
But she's not so much mad at the kid originally. She's more mad at the mother, who's the born again.
But yeah, he's putting the wedge in between them.
Credits.
Oh well, that's the end of this
Let's
show.
go.
Wait, Jeff, did you like Joshua?
I like Joshua, especially for the performances.
Best
Sam
performance.
Rockwell was excellent.
I will
very
say
good.
Another dimension.
Even
to
though I
himself.
think Who Can Kill a Child is my favorite movie, this is probably the best movie of all the ones we discussed today.
And Joshua actually didn't get great reviews,
No, it
which
didn't.
surprised me.
Hi, I'm Edwin Samuelson, and welcome to the CineFiles, a show that allows you to eavesdrop on the conversations of fellow film fanatics. All right, today we'll be discussing evil children, that is, children that are possessed by the devil or just plain evil. But before I begin, let me introduce my co-host. To my left, Mr. Eric Cohen. To his left, Jeff Galashaw. And to his left...
To censor reasons. It's a pretty dark
Well, how
ending.
was the original ending?
The original ending, if I recall, the mother thinks she's killed the daughter. She realizes and then she tries to kill herself.
Shoots herself in the head.
But the twist is her daughter survives.
Which seems to be like a regular, almost like these days a Hollywood typical ending.
Right,
Like the
the
ending of
usual
Omen.
dark end, like sinister.
But what's great is
punchline,
somehow the mom survives the gunshot to the head, but yet a lightning bolt comes out of nowhere and kills the child. And I thought to myself after I saw this, at that time when that movie was released, and if you took your child to see it, I can just imagine legions of parents saying to their children, see, God doesn't like kids that misbehave. God kills bad children with lightning bolts.
Would you say this is a precursor to like Baby Jane and films like in that vein?
Not really.
It feels like it, even though I know it's older ladies.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I would say that for a time it was a unique kind of film. No one had.
The way she reacts to certain things is like, okay, that makes sense. That's how I would see a mother. And then when she's like doing these stutter steps and she's picking up the phone going, hello? Like she's just so emotionally crippled inside that her child is, she skips the generation of evil because her mother was like a killer and here her little girl is a killer all over again, and she just doesn't know how to handle it, and she's going off the. But Patty McCormick is wonderful. She's the strength of the film because she's such a vile little brat.
And I'd like to point out one performance I enjoyed. I don't know if this puts me in the gay category, but Eileen Eckhart
As the mom of the deceased boy.
Yes, I loved her performance in this film.
Come here and give your auntie a kiss.
Well, don't forget, as Eric mentioned too, this was based on a play, and so it's going to be
It
theatrical.
feels very stagey.
Well, yeah, it was based on a play, which is based on a successful novel, and it'd be interesting to see if they had, at the time, they had to change the ending because,
Sense of reason that people really have never seen at this time. I mean, seeing a child at this evil, everyone thought a kid was really sweet and all this, but they didn't really see how manipulative and vindictive they could be.
Well, you got to understand, the movie was based on a very successful Broadway play, which was based on a very successful novel. It was like a huge bestseller. So people were anticipating the movie version at this point. So it had sort of its built-in audience already. But they changed the ending.
They did change the ending.
From the original source material.
Now, what makes The Bad Seed stick with you? Is it the subject matter, is it the performances, or is it just a good movie? Because whenever something is new and original at the time, it actually has a little, life to it.
I saw it recently. It's not necessarily that good of a movie. I mean, it's very. After I watched the movie, or during the movie, and then after the movie, I said to myself and I said to friends afterwards, I can understand why the gays love this movie because it is so goddamn campy. I mean, especially the mom. The mom does more scene chewing than I've ever seen. Like sometimes
Michael Fultz. Now,
I'm gonna catch in something.
Oh, I know they're not possessed by the devil. They're evil fuckers.
Forgive our producer / co-host. He's battling a migraine.
Severe migraine, but I'm glad.
Yeah, he had the screws put to him during the live show, so he's a little off his kilter.
My head is in the
But
place.
it's evil kids.
It is evil
That's
kids.
the theme.
They're evil sons of bitches. They do bad deeds. Anyway, we're going to start out with, of course, the most famous, and probably, I guess you could say, the first evil kid film, and it actually made its child actress at the time a very big star. The movie is The Bad Seed, and the actress is Patty McCormack.
Right on.
Yes.
Let's start out with this one. The Bad Seed concerns Patty McCormack, of course, who plays the title role, is a child who is a very unique character because the girl actually uses manipulation and actually is kind of like the Eddie Haskell, where she convinces people she's this really sweet girl and overdoes it.
Well, she's a sociopath. It's the first depiction of a sociopath.
A real honest-to-God sociopath, exactly.
And this is something